Just over the years that you've been teaching, you've mentioned your perpetual desire for growth and evolution. And I'm just wondering how that has shown up, like maybe expanded perspectives you now hold on teaching that weren't there at the beginning. Like, how have you evolved? What do you hold now? Yeah.
Since I've been around so long, a lot could be said. I'll spend another 3 hours on that, but we won't do that. I see. You see, you're so comfortable to be with and inviting and safe that I'm just blabbing my head off.
Stop blabbing. This is
really enjoying this. I wasn't planning to go into all this detail, but it's just flowing out of me.
Good.
So I think the important thing to say is the uniqueness of each person's spiritual unfolding process. So this is thing we learned, and I learned as teacher. So I'm the one who coined the term oozing in, because Saniel had a distinct shift into second birth. I had a distinct shift into second birth. We both had a opening into the embodied feeling witness consciousness prior to the second birth transition. So then that means, but there are people, they were seeming like their awakening was more progressive. Oh, it wasn't a distinct shift. They were kind of oozing in. And that was different. So then I noticed that and going, okay, people, there are different styles of doing this second birth shift, this transition that we're now call initial whole being realization. And then like one person I had interviewed, I evolved into being one of the second birth interviewers. There was one person I remember when interviewing her, she said, I felt love for the bathroom tile.
I remember this person.
Yeah. And I'm going, wow, okay. Now I felt love, but I didn't feel love for the bathroom tile. Oh, this is how it's uniquely showing up for her. And then, so each person's process was unique. So as a teacher, I wanted to honor each person's unique awakening process, both pre-awakening and post-awakening. And try to customize it. What do they need? Experiments with like longer gazing. Will that help? If I gaze 10 minutes with a student in a sitting, will that accelerate their awakening? Or will some pearls of wisdom that I share with them be the insight that goes, oh, now I understand. I saw this paradox of being both divine and human was like the open secret at the core of existence and at the core of our being. This marriage of the absolute and the relative, and of being of infinite and finite, transcendental and material, this both and we're this divine and human sandwich. So it's been important for me to honor and, let's say, feed the divine side of the equation. Now, this also comes from having done a lot of therapy. I dove into the human. I went into the shadow. I had the sense of when my obsessive compulsive disorder was at its height, I was living in a lot of anxiety and terror. An extreme of how it would be. My obsessive compulsive disorder was related to fear of contamination from hazardous substances like pesticides and herbicides, things like radiation. It was less about germs, and then with my keen mind that could split hairs and being a dentist, like at its height, like I remember walking down the street and there's this pest control truck driving by. And maybe it had some hoses on the back and the wind was blowing in my direction. It's on the street, I'm on the sidewalk, and I would go, I might have been contaminated by some fumes blowing from the truck. And now I have to wash my clothes, I'm contaminated. Mm-hmm. So from that extreme, so this crazy, and I call it, I had funky personality syndrome, FPS. I had major funky personality syndrome, but I still awakened. So that's why I said, you can have funky personality syndrome and you could still awaken, because if I did, you can too. But I did therapy. So that was helpful integrating. So the point is, so I had my shadow dive, and my wake down, shakedown was not as extreme, because I had kind of gone into a lot of the swamps of my unconscious, and it was like, yeah. So there weren't a lot of surprises. It's just this kind of rawness to it and feeling it more intensely, because there isn't the same kind of veils of shielding. Everything is more raw and more immediate. But like I felt like this also with a clarification of consciousness, like a boat cutting through the water, and there's this moment to moment recognition, which is the front of the boat going through the water. So I'd be feeling these anxieties, but they whatever phenomenon, the body mind, but then it would pass more quickly. Okay, it was that recognition about moment by moment. Now, this is one key that I refined in my teaching that even has been more obvious more recently, that whole being realization is not, we've said there's not some state that you arrive at, and it's going to fluctuate. So it'll vary. So when the body mind is more stressed, it will recede to the back burner. So when I was at my dental office and I'm running late, and it's a difficult procedure and I'm stressed out, then the recognition, the bodily registration of this awakened condition goes to the back burner. It's just like feeling the stress of the body mind. And then when the body mind is more relaxed, then it can reemerge. And then it has its own ebbs and flows, and then transmission can magnify it. So it felt like, it's as a moment by moment feeling relaxation into the moment, and opening and feeling, and relaxing attention, so it's softer, opening and feeling, and being present with what is in the body mind, being the body mind, what is, and to recognize, okay, this is it's registered in this moment in conscious awareness. So I'm feeling it, being it as this human body mind, which has its heights and pits, and so there's a paradoxical freedom where I'm not exclusively identifying with what's happening in the body mind, at the same time feeling it in a raw way, the both and. This is how you experience the divine human sandwich. But this thing, with embodied, with initial whole being realization, we have more stable access to being the core wound, being this core paradox. And, so like when we're gazing, we're going into a more moment by moment, just relaxation and opening to being this divine and human sandwich, and being with whatever's rising in us, and being whatever is happening with the person that we're gazing with. So like we can open just in the course of a day, like you're kind of gazing with the world, gazing with being, and just opening in this moment by moment way. So that's one important thing I found. That there can be let's say, a settling in, relaxing into the lap of being by this this moment to moment, open and feeling, like a feeling surrender into relaxing attention from the body mind, just being the whole unified field. So we're mixing in some of what is evolving in post-awakened life is the seamless unity. And there's a term we use, the sacred marriage of Shiva and Shakti, the sacred marriage of the absolute and the relative. So there's this paradoxical seamless unity. This paradox seamless unity intensifies and magnifies and expands, and then that it deepens from, let's say, early on, let's say I experienced, this is simplified, maybe the material and spiritual worlds as more of a continuum. Adida would say that the material world are modifications or manifestations of consciousness, so that there's only consciousness. And then, this is what deepen is like. So things, let's say, the material and spiritual domains are like more continuum and a unity, and then it further, this unity further intensifies into a singularity, singular, radiant divine being, that there's a recognition that unfolds over time, that there is only radiant divine being, which is simultaneously both unmanifested and manifested. It's both divine beings, both transcendental and material. So there's only one, there's only divine being. So, but the material world is materialized divine being, and so there's nothing that is not divine being. So that gets revealed more and more as we mature in awakened life, and it's at a different speed for everyone. So now, and it's interesting that there's new evolved dharma coming, like from Rod Taylor and his whole being evolution map, and also then now from Ted, and so he talks about unity becoming singularity. One thing I'll be speaking more on is about what I call Amrita singularity, Amrita unity, because there's this nectarous factor where this radiant love bliss. So this is one thing where, in terms of a teacher and what's evolved, concurrently, like in teaching, I was also being a graduate student, further studying, deepening, exploring in my own spiritual maturation, concurrently with teaching. And as I deepened in my own realization, further matured, then I had more to offer to my students and a broadened perspective. So I think this is also the thing that's very important, is like, we have teachers with that are earlier on in their whole being realization, and then some who have had many, many years. And there is, a maturation process. So, so I would recommend, expect more, look for more. I mean, it's full, and but there's further maturation, deepening. So this, let's let's say, recognition that there's only radiant divine being, that everyone is already that, and it's something that we already are. That is something that further deepens. So one of the themes on that is, I was saying, as I'm weaving around here, are feeding, honoring our divine nature. There's a divinization of the personal self that happens as we deepen and mature in whole being realization, awakened life, post-awakened life. And Sanyal had these fancy terms. I think he called it, our identity gravity shifts from more the personal to divine identity. But another way of saying it is there's a divinization of the personal self and a divinization of the physical world, material world, things. So we know, that it is divine being, but then we get to experience it more. And then also, these are the roots of more mature mutuality. It's not just as a human being, I grant you your human weirdness, as I grant my human weirdness, but also as I experience more of my inherent divinity. I am divine being. I am a divine incarnation. That it's all inclusive. You are a divine incarnation. Everyone is a divine incarnation. Not everyone recognizes and realizes, but everyone is that already. So then there's that love honoring. This, Deborah is divine being, a divine incarnation also. This is divine being. I'm looking at divine being in a materialized form. So then that also gives more love and compassion and more of the sacred. So that's why I've been also wanting to, as a teacher, honor more of our divinity. Because one, it was being revealed to me, and then I'm seeing it more deeply in people I'm working with and people in general. So that is a deepening, because it's conceptual, and then feel more of it, and then feel more. Then also as you relax into the singularity of divine being, by extension, then there's nothing that is not divine being. There's only divine being. And that's also why Adidas said there's only the heart, capital H, heart. So that gets revealed. And then there's also this Amrita Factor, where there's infusions of love, bliss, intoxication. So we need to weave this in here, because this also affected my teaching work and my transmission. So in 2000, Jennifer, our fellow teacher, she let me know, hey, there's a spiritual teacher coming to visit, and he's holding a sitting at my house. She was in Mill Valley then, and so I'm going, you want to come? And go, yeah. And this was David Spero. So I went there, sitting in her beautiful living room. She decorates very beautifully. She's very artistic, as we know. And I was, I was in interviews. I was trying to figure out his realization, going, I wasn't doing the inside. I was doing that. What's he realized? And it was significant, his speech, spiritual speech. And then about halfway through this sitting, he says, don't just listen to me, feel me. Okay. So then I relaxed the figuring out, discrimination, open and feeling. And then within a short time, it could have been 10, 15 minutes, I began feeling like an ecstasy, what I described as a love swoon. And what this was, it was a love intensification of love bliss, radiant divine love bliss. Like I was getting intoxicated, like as if I'd smoked a joint.
Wow.
And I was feeling like this ecstatic love bliss more than I've ever felt. And it happened fast. And I'm going inside, I'm thinking, holy cow. And I was pleasantly astounded, but I was drunk, so I was just enjoying it. That got my attention. I'm going, because at this point, this was the fifth year into my awakened life. And I was feeling life was kind of more beige, more neutral. I could rest. There's this wellness of being and consciousness. So like at lunchtime, I'd walk and I'd go, okay, these feelings are arising in consciousness. And so I wasn't exclusively identifying this sense of the unity, but it was kind of bland. I mean, kind of neutral. And I wasn't in a relationship. I didn't have a girlfriend. So I was a little sad about that. And so after I was at the city with David Spero, afterwards, I felt like I was in love.
Wow.
There were these residual effects. And, but there was no particular person it was directed at. And it felt like the black and white movie was now color. And I was going, I feel happier. And then periodically I'd feel kind of this heightened love bliss. And I was going, wow, what is this? I'm feeling like I'm in love now. And I'm happier. I'm going, I want to know what this is. Why is this happening? Why haven't I experienced this before? So that could speak hours about that, but that was part of my graduate school. I was continuing to explore. And this is where I'll say there's some Amrita Factor, nectar. And so I can spend time with David Spero for this transmission. And he talked about, in the broadest sense word, like being a divine mother teacher. So this is another theme. It's like one simple way of saying this. Some people are oriented to the masculine face of God, and some are oriented to the feminine face of God. It turns out by my soul nature, I'm oriented to the feminine face of God. So I have this devotional side, and I'm more a divine mother person. Now, I would talk about the divine mother in the broadest sense of the word, like maybe supreme mother, not just a singular goddess figure. There are traditions for this in Hinduism of what they call Mahadevi, the supreme goddess, which is could see as a womb of existence, out of which Shiva and Shakti arise. You could say another perspective on it is ultimate divine being has no gender. But let's say I call it the feminine heart of being. That's where we could say the masculine side is the consciousness, the transcendental consciousness, impersonal. And the feminine side of divine being is the supreme love, the bliss, and the Shakti, the divine energy, what Adida calls spirit current, the life current. And if you remember, Adida talked about radiant divine love bliss and transcendental consciousness, both. Now, as I understand it, Sanyal focused on the transcendental consciousness because he saw people getting distracted in the radiant, in the love bliss. There was the garbage and the goddess period. So he wanted to focus, and I asked him about this. How come we don't talk more about bliss? Because I was experiencing bliss. I'm going, I want more of this happening and waking down, baby. We need more bliss. We're just going through this muckety muck of the wake down, shake down. like, let's get some more juice and bliss. It's possible because it's happening to me. It's happening to me. I'm cracking up here. So that's why I've made some of the statements I've made. So he wanted to focus on the people clarifying consciousness so they didn't get distracted by that. And so he simplified things, and he talked about consciousness and the body, consciousness and phenomena. And in the early days of Waking, we would talk about the Shakti because people would get buzzed after the from and after the sitting, and sometimes they come back and say, I had difficulty sleeping. And I remember going to sittings with Sanyal, and I'd feel this buzz afterwards. I'd go out to nature because to ground and enjoy, and I feel like, oh, everything's kind of buzzing with this life force, and it's in me, and it's in the trees, and so that was the Shakti, the life current, spirit current. So we talked about it then, but we stopped talking about it as Waking Down progressed, and it got to be consciousness and phenomena. So I'm going, this needs to be brought back in. But then the core dharma, now we call core teaching, didn't include that. And so I felt a frustration about that. Like, hey, wait a minute, we're missing these key elements of divine being that is also part of the traditions in Satchidananda and all those, Eastern philosophy. So we need to expand things. Unfortunately, things, our dharma, core dharma has been expanded and will continue to be. And so there's more room for this. So there's, in addition to the transcendental consciousness, transcendental awareness, I call these three aspects of being. Is okay. The radiant sun is pouring on you as we're talking about the Shakti. So there are these three aspects of whole being, So there's the transcendental awareness, and we focus a lot on that, and that's critical to realize that and clarify that. So you're not as exclusively identified the body, mind. You can have detachment, grounded, embodied detachment. Then there's also the life force, the Shakti current, which you can feel as that heightened buzz or vibration in the body. That's primal vibrational current of existence. And I see it's all one whole. Like the Shakti is the movement, energy of consciousness. And then at the core of existence is this supreme love, this love and bliss. That's why they call it about Satchidananda, the Ananda. This is the Amrita Factor, this love bliss that I got intoxicated by it when I saw David Spero that first time. So, and then there's this love, supreme love and bliss as a third aspect, and it's all materialized, like into matter. So now, interestingly, Rod Taylor, in his Whole Being Evolution, came up with something similar, independent of me. And so he about this triad, which has infinite, the love bliss, the spark of life, which I would equate in expanding a little bit to this Shakti current and the consciousness. So he has this triad element and like cosmology of being. And so now interesting, and I'll make an editorial comment here. I deepened in this through grace and transmission. That's why I would spend time with Dave to be infused by this transmission, to be irradiated by it. And also I wanted to, weaving into this to how I work as a teacher, to have this in my transmission. So, okay, now obviously I want it because I like bliss, and I just want it, this feels good. I like getting high. I'm going to go there and get high. And also, the unity can be the paradox music can be intensified, and also then the mind can quiet where it's hard to form thoughts. So I experienced this. So I would just soak in this transmission, so I'd have more than I wanted to embodied, be suffused by that, so I would have this in my transmission that I could offer to students and people I'm working with. And I've had people, some say that, hey, there's something a little different about your transmission. I felt such and such. And I remember doing some sittings, and people reporting feeling some bliss or intoxication from being at the sitting and from the transmission. So I was happy about that. But I was also a little shy about sharing more about this because it wasn't part of the core dharma at that time. And it's kind of like, I had concerns about rocking the boat and being politically, spiritually incorrect.
Oh.
So, see, Mr. Perfect, I'm a good little Asian kid. I want parents to be happy. Don't be upset at me. And, so authority figures. So I try to be out of the closet about it, but more low key. But I wanted to be more outspoken about it and sharing, okay, hey, we can have juicier spiritual lives in our pre and post awakened life, but especially post awakened life, because there'd be people ask, is awakening worth it? And if you only know about the wake down, shape down, and like going into the shadow and all those horrible things, which is a little too much publicity about, and not the divine pleasure of the heart of divine being, then it was, it's true. You have this more of this rawness, but it's also, there is this Amrita factor, this radiant, the energetic love bliss aspect of divine being that is available. And this, weaving that in is more what I would call the feminine side. So you don't even have to give it a gender, but being that that's my spiritual aesthetic, I call that, from Supreme Mother. And then there's also the grace factor, the magical stuff that happens just there, and the beauty of life, just like, you see a sunset and you go, oh, well, there's also this beauty of divine being, so there's more of this sacredness, both of the world and of us human beings being divine and human. See, I call it not just divinely human, but divine and human. That we are, everyone is divine being. There's nothing that is not divine being. And then as you advance in awakened life, then this deepens in experience. And the personal self, like if we use the ocean and wave metaphor, initially before awakening, you have a wave and the ocean, and wave is going, it's great here, but I feel kind of separate, fundamentally separate. And then there's realization, hey, I'm water, I'm ocean. Oh, ocean and wave are a unified whole, and it's paradoxical. I'm still a wave. Hey, I'm a really interesting wave, but I'm also ocean. I'm ocean and wave simultaneously. Paradox, the core paradox, the core mystery. And then oceanness soaks into us, and the seamless unity, the oceanness develops as we deepen a singularity, like oceanness can become more prominent. Also, we need to do the sufficient, let's say, integration work, let's say, of healing the human psyche, so we can, let's say, be more balanced and integrated. And because, transmission will magnify whatever is there, both our humanness and our divinity. So it'll magnify the shadow and our divinity. So people go, ah, and can go wacko and project stuff, transfer stuff, everything. And then, so yes, therapy is helpful for, managing all that. But when you've done sufficient emotional, psychological healing and integration, then there's this, our divinity is available, and the divinity of all of existence, the whole world is available. So as a teacher, that's where I want to share more of this. And this is the spiritual juice, the nectar, the Amrita Factor, which you could say is more the feminine side of being, or Mahadevi, if you're bent like that, Supreme Mother, and the magical grace that helps endure life more. And I have a model for this. So this I've taught this, and I think it's on one of the virtual sittings. So the triad factor. So Eastern. Okay, this is something. It is different dharma than Eastern dharma, Eastern spiritual teaching, where consciousness is supreme. That's the self. Then you have, the Advaitic schools that have the exclusive conscious realization. That's the self. Consciousness, transcendental awareness is the self. And anything that changes is not the self, illusion. So that's like, there's the ocean, but the waves, that's not real. Well, then there's a realization, and the ocean and wave are one paradoxical, seamless unity. But consciousness has been posited as this is the fundamental ground of being, and it's primary. And it was said, consciousness is senior and Shakti is junior. There's some teacher that said that. That is a prevailing view, and that's what I grew up with. But now I see it more as a triad, and for me, so this supreme divine love is the heart of being. So in this, let's say, cosmic body model of cosmology, transcendental awareness is like the body, the body of existence. Mm-hmm. And so we have, just like the human body, conscious is the body. Supreme love is like the heart of the body. Mm. So supreme love is the heart of existence. Consciousness, transcendental awareness is the body of existence. Supreme love is the heart of existence. And then the divine energy is like the blood, the energy of the body. So this is the cosmic body. And for me, being love-oriented, love is the most important, even though it's an inseparable part of, let's say, the triad or trinity. That's all manifested into the material world. So the material world is as much divine being as divine being. It's just, it's materialized. Let's say it's God in slow motion. And but it's not, because I also believe, okay, there's earth, that's just like chemicals, molecules, and atoms and all that. And then there's the spiritual domain, and they're separate. I grew up with that scientific model. So they're not separate. First, it was a continuum, and then it was a unity, then a singularity. There's only ultimate divine being, simultaneously manifested and unmanifested. So as the ocean intensifies, and in, let's say, in feeling relaxation into that, then the personal wave recognize there's only oceanness. And so our divine identity, the divinity of everything, then becomes more prominent. And when the personal self is relaxed, then you just have the personal self, body, mind arising in the unified field, and you're both simultaneously. Then you could relax attention. The personal self can temporarily melt and dissolve into the ocean, and there's just oceanness. There's only divine beingness, simultaneously transcendental and material. Mm. So the then, let's say, more of our divinity, divineness of ourselves. I am God, all inclusively. Mm. You are God, all inclusively. We all are God. Terry says, we am that. We are God, all inclusive. Everyone, everything is God, divine being. So that's what has over time been matured in the more advanced stages of whole being realization. And that will give a different teaching perspective. It'll bring forth a different core teaching, a different core dharma from that perspective. And then how I might voice that in working with students is going to be different. But then have to, let's say, share things in a way that's appropriate that people can understand at their level. Then, but that's also why I would like to, work with more help people, let's say, who have that interest to work into more advanced stages of awakened life, and have that's why I really appreciate this opportunity to share about this, so we could have like a bigger picture, a bigger map. And the other thing to say, in Trillium Awakening now, okay, there's no single head. So what this allows is we are a collective teacher. We have spiritual diversity. Hallelujah! Hallelujah! So then now I could come forward more, and then Rod came out with his thing, and Ted came out with his thing, other people coming out with it. So the great, and as I said, each person's spiritual process is unique. So then I could share my perspective, and then other people, Trillium teachers can share their perspectives, and the umbrella is getting bigger. And so so we have more richness to offer people. I feel it important. And other people who have, let's say, a more devotional orientation say, I'm glad that you're teaching, you're speaking up, because then this gives me more room and feel like there's a place for me here, and someone understands me in a feeling way. So devotion has to do with feeling, unconditional feeling. And so I have both the discrimination and then, the unconditional feeling and opening in the feeling dimension. So that I also stress that in, teaching, but also with, let's say, more feelingly oriented devotional students. So that's how my teaching has evolved, and I hope it continues, to evolve, and more of this Amrita factor. We can have more of this rich enjoyment of divine being in Trillium that we share with students, and then spread to the world. So,
wow, that is just magnificent, Ben. I'm feeling all this buzzing and love bliss currents running through me. I can hardly find words other than just, this is such a sumptuous feast laid out with such clarity and precision and honoring of our humanity, acknowledgement of our divinity, and the integration, and just you embodying all this with every word throughout your whole presentation here. So I just can't thank you enough. And perhaps there'll be future installments where we can explore some of this more fully. I think this is a good place to land.
yes.
And let this integrate in both of us and just see what next surfaces. But this is just so generous. And I just thank you for your whole life, for your incarnation, and for your role in this teaching and in my life and this work and with your students and future generations. So thank you with all my heart.
Thank you, Deborah. And, your open heart and welcome and love creates that safety and invitation to come forth. I think if someone else was interviewing me, the fullness of this might not come forward. You have that openness and loving nature and great appreciative heart. So this could more easily flow. So thank you to you, and thank you for creating this, because I have not had this opportunity to speak this openly and fully before. So this is just a golden opportunity that you've made possible, and so thank you very much. And I'm happy I could share this, both currently, whoever wants to watch this, and for future, because all the things I've sorted out, I did say, I want to pass this on. I don't want it just to, dive me. It's taken time to sort these things out, and I'm still continuing, still a work in progress, but it's been wonderful to be able to share this deeply and this fully with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Van.
Very wonderful.